Welcome to the Cove Podcast, your stop for PME on the go.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Cove Podcast. I'm Captain Todd Lemper, the host of the Cove Podcast. But today I'm at the ADF School of Special Operations. I'm chatting to two PTIs from the Human Performance Wing about what it takes to be a member of the Special Forces, and I suppose give the hot tips and tricks for selection more broadly from the PTIs that actually inflict the majority of the pain on each of the candidates for some of the gut checks on selection. This is a rare opportunity, I suppose, to peer behind the curtain somewhat and get an insight into what it's actually like. The two PTIs I'm joined from the today from the Human Performance Wing by Ben and Kampo. How you going, lads?
G'day, Todd. Good to be here.
Can't wait.
So when we were designing this episode, and I threw it out to some guys that have succeeded in the last couple of years on the selections, they literally asked for you both by name. So Kampo, you've been through a number of thousands of candidates through selection, and you've prepared a lot of people and then obviously inflicted a lot of pain. And Ben, you're the new guy on the block that's come in and like absolutely injected some electric energy into the process prior to.
Pleasure is actually more ours, Kampo, because we're in the presence of someone who is on YouTube and has unofficially run a 2.4 backwards and passed. So a lot of members listening probably have known you for those such exploits or achievements, as some would say. So thanks for coming in today.
Thanks for bringing your moustache in too today, Ben. It's been great.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
I suppose we should begin with some context. You two work in Human Performance Wing at the ADF School of Special Operations. Can you just describe where you fit in the broader picture? And I suppose I'll throw to Kampo straight away.
So we're a part of the physical component of the ADF SSO or Australian Defence Force School of Special Operations Human Performance Wing. We assist in the pre-selection training, the selection component, and post-selection reinforcement training for Special Forces. And you're in for a session straight after this.
Yeah, sounds good.
We actually have one of the most unique jobs, I'd say, as a PTI in the Army, or just generally in the Army, because we actually are your best friend leading up to selection, some would say, or some would disagree with. And then we try and get you off selection. So it's a very unique relationship we have with a lot of the people, particularly the DRS, because they see us as, there's morale in a box coming towards them, and it turns out it could be negative or positive. So it's a very rewarding kind of job. So
Jekyll and Hyde.
Yeah,
stuff.
That's good. A bit of push and pull. I suppose that talks to the organisational component, but for you two gentlemen here, what sort of, and I qualified your opinion before by saying that a number of people who have passed and been successful in selection have asked you to be part of this podcast today, but more so what qualifies your opinion, how many selections have you run, how long have you been involved in the whole process, how many selections have you done?
I think it's 16. I think 16 selections from East and West Coast when they were separated. Soon to be 17, and I've been in SOCOMD since 2008, straight. Looking after the physical components of preparing people, running the selection course, the physical training component of the selection course, and of course preparing people to on the reinforcement training cycle for each of the courses that they conduct throughout that course.
And then, I suppose from those that can't see, there's no video, but Ben, you bring somewhat of a new age or electric approach to the selection process. Where do you fit in, or how many selections have you done?
Yeah, so I was involved with getting guys ready to go last year that attended the first combined selection course. A bunch of engineers, luckily enough, and then this year I took part in the first one in Perth, where it was all three services. I guess for Kampo and I, we get to see the best of both, seeing as we bounce between the units and whatnot, and we get lots of opinions on how to train and see the different types of selection with his experiences. And then I guess the new age style of training that's coming through now, where we're more focused on strength and, maintaining muscle rather than, running all the time and running ourselves into the ground. We're using different load management protocols, and we go into that with the 30-week program as well. So we've kind of come together here at the moment, and we're trying to build the best product or the best soldiers to put on those selection courses through the DRS schemes, and the guys throughout the Army that are lucky enough to come down here and prep with us and push them on there with their, with the goal of passing selection, and then seeing them on the other side, where then we go through the recovery process and getting them through their courses that they require.
Yeah, and I suppose so. Seeing a number of different applicants from all different walks of life, I suppose, to all different pathways. You guys have seen it all. Probably, I would say thousands. Yeah, thousands of applicants over the years.
Definitely thousands. Thousands.
For those interested in joining, go down this selection pipeline into SF, where do they start with the physical preparation phase? I suppose the logical step is, where do we start when we're trying to prepare physically? You talk to the 30-week program. We'll get to that in a moment. But where do we start? Where does someone start their physical preparation?
I think looking at the general population now, where we'd be looking at starting is as simple as like team sports. So, change of direction, being able to move under load and speed. So, you got your sports, your touch footy, your basketball, your rugby. Those guys that have those backgrounds, those sporting backgrounds, we do see to, succeed or come to the Army with that elevated fitness level compared to someone, who was more concentrated on computer work and stuff like that. So we're looking at those, potential athletes that were before Army. We come in here and then we just kind of hone those skills, work on their physical conditioning and physical robustness, and then add in that sprinkle of mental resilience, and then we get a really, really good byproduct at the end of the process.
I think what we were talking about before of those that aren't in the Army yet, the training age of those, so how long, as Ben mentioned, how long they've been in training prior to joining, but as well as for those that are in, being generally fit and frequency and consistency within your training before you start looking at joining SOCOM is key. And then, of course, once you conduct the expression of interest, you'll have to complete a 2.4 kilometre run in under 10 minutes, or you basically do a BFA in under 10 minutes. And the push-ups are 40 push-ups and a BFA under 10 minutes.
So I suppose that's all pre-30-week program, but what factors come into play when we compare training along the different stages of the recruiting process? Obviously, we've got a broader audience here with current serving and then direct entry guys, but how does the training differ from getting a good result on a BFA? So you've given a quantitative measure there for a BFA result, particularly for the run, but to then undertake the SFEC to be physically optimised to complete selection.
Well, that's the 30-week training program in a nutshell, actually. So once you complete that EOI and have done the sub-10 BFA, then you get access to the 30-week training program. And that's a phased approach to taking people from where they are now, generally fit, as I mentioned before, and that's key. So generally fit, you can't just step off the couch and say, I'm doing the 30-weeker and that's it. You step off, you're generally fit, frequency and consistency in training, and strong, I should mention too, of course. And then you get access to the 3-phase 30-week training program, which will take you and bounce you through all of those preparation phases to get ready for, firstly, SFET and then selection.
So getting ready, I suppose, and having a goal at the end. The throwback to you, Ben, but how's the common selection changed the physical requirements? Now, we moved to, and the last episode was on common selection and that move, and you've been through the most recent one with a number of candidates for, and you said engineers, but how's the common selection changed the physical requirements, if at all?
I think now that we're looking at it, so for that combined selection with what gets run over there is you're looking at more of a robust soldier who can take, I guess, repetitive pack marching, lifting, carrying efforts. So a generally strong soldier or a strong individual over and over again, someone who has a very high strength index, so that over a time period of 21 days, they're not going to completely exhaust themselves in that first 1 to 3 days because their strength index is down and they're not as strong as they probably should be in preparation for that selection course. We've also seen we've had to change our training here so that we get the guys carrying a lot more load, unilateral work, single arm carries, carrying uneven loads, as that is potentially part of what they go through selection now. And we had to adjust on that because we hadn't seen what the combined selection look like this year until we actually ran it to be able to have okay, this is what we need to start looking at and programming for guys and changing the 30-week program because that program's going to keep evolving. And even if you're looking at joining the Defence Force and then going through that process with the goal of Special Forces, the biggest piece of advice is when you get to Kapuka and you go to Singleton, you're doing the training that the physical training instructors put you through with the goal of every single one of these sessions, I'm there to get the desired outcome. You're not going to go out and do, the extra stuff that's going to put you I guess, in a bad situation later on that week, because your training load and load management's fluctuated because you may not be used to that load, because you've got to take into consideration all the marching around and all those type of things. So I think it's a very gradual process now. Soldiers and individuals should probably be looking at, 2 years. They finish the basic training, do IETs, do their IET course, and then try and get some mental resilience activities under their belt before they start going down that SOCOMD process, where we start poking and prodding and not only testing your physical capabilities, but your mental resilience as well, because that's what we're looking for in SOCOMD.
Yeah, a common thread, I suppose, is that mental part. It's not just the physical components, the mental part as well. We talked in the last episode about different ways to get into or through selection and the ways which. But do the physical, and I'll throw back to you, Kampo, do the physical standards change with SF engineers, medics, signalers, all the pathways that we spoke about in the last episode?
No, they don't change, and nor should the training. And that's the advice that we give. Firstly, on all the electronic platforms that we have, so that the SharePoint for ADF members, the 30-week training program, SFETs, EOIs, everything that comes out of ADF SSO is predominantly sort of preaching that as well. The research that we've been lucky enough to be involved in research on some of the factors that are key to success for candidates on a selection course and pre-selection, and even within the reinforcement cycle, so post-selection, and that is max strength. So strength was shown, and it was shown through peak force on a set of force plates. But basically, the higher you can generate force, so your peak force, the more likely you were to be standing at the end of 21 days. And the less likely you were to be injured throughout those 21 days. And so for that, that's what Ben's talking about before in terms of the evolution of the training program. It changes all the time. It changes based on what we see and the nuance changes of the selection course year to year. But it has a foundation of evidence based on the Defence Science and Technology Group research that they've conducted and been able to show us.
So I suppose for those that get the 30-week program and they launch into it, obviously it's a new project or a new release for you from last year, designed by you guys. But the science behind that is all sort of just explain a little bit more about the science, I suppose. Kampo.
It was a three year project done, I think, completed firstly by Defence Science and Technology Group, but I think either Macquarie University. I have to check the details, but we've certainly taken that on board. We've shown that they've shown us that strength is key, and of course, when you look at phase one and of course phase two of the training, 3-phase training program, that 30-week training program, you can see that it's really centred around the generation of strength and survivability of selection course.
So 30-week program, it's sort of, I suppose, no one should be thinking like this if they're going for selection, I suppose, but it is a long time, right? Why is it so long? Do you know what I mean? It's a 7-month program. Why is it so long?
I'll throw to Ben after this, but we initially had a 17-week training program, and like we spoke about before, guys that were less trained. And so the frequency and consistency of training, so their strength and conditioning was a lot lower than the average of others that were joining the Army, and that's kind of a trend that we've seen throughout. The steepness of where they had to be, or the steepness of where they had to join the 17-week training program was too steep, and we were starting to either burn people out before the step-off point to selection, or they were being injured throughout the time. So it's too much too soon, and basically to lessen the steepness of the training program and give them some general physical preparation as well.
So I suppose we've introduced the 30-week program in a brief way, but I suppose, Ben, do you mind going through in far more detail about what the program entails and sort of how it prepares people best for selection?
So when we designed the 30-week training program, we got really lucky with the cell, and we had multiple people. It wasn't just Kampo and I building this program. There was 4, 5, 6 other people. We called in other physios because you're really good at checking your own homework. So we wanted to make sure it's like, okay, this is the baseline, this is the shell. What do you guys think? We had an awesome PTI working with us at the time who came from a sports science background, who absolutely loves it and, is working outside on civilian NRL teams and stuff as well. And we put us all together, grabbed a few of the other PTIs from some of the other SOCOMD units, and we sat down, pretty much locked the doors and said, okay, this is the shell of 30 weeks. Now let's write it. And we used all the SMEs, talking about, hey, this, hey, that, you take this phase, you take that phase, because the program is broken up into 3 phases. We've got the general PPP phase, which, you, I, and Kampo could go do now for the next 10 weeks. It's just a general preparedness phase where we're just generally trying to get you strong and fit. There's not really much Army-specific fitness in there. We're just trying to get you fast, we're just trying to get you strong, and we're just trying to keep you injury-free. That's the goal of it. It's got sprinkled with a little bit of mental resilience stuff in there as well through the psych cell that we have here, have chucked in through the Adele package. And then we also have physio prevention stuff in there as well. We then move into that next phase, which is prepping you 10 weeks out from your SFAT, now the SFAP series, and that's getting you ready for that testing serial. So we start introducing, more weighted marches. We're starting to run under load. We're starting to do back-to-back 1,600 loaded repeats, doing 3.2s, just to find where that start state is to where we need to finish at. And obviously, along that journey as well, now that we've gone digital on the app, we're able to go, hey, guys, if there's an issue, reach out. Because now, with how the way technology is moving forward, they can send us a message, we can send them a message, and it becomes more of a one-on-one coaching kind of athlete-style relationship rather than just, hey, set and forget, here's a photocopy from Excel, good luck, and we'll see you at the end. So we're trying to create and bridge that gap to make it more personable, so if people feel the ability to be able to reach out, and it's not so shy. It's like, hey, I'm prepping for SIG, the SIG course I'm planning on going for selection. My heaves aren't there. What would you recommend? And then we can tailor that program and change that program and add into the 30-weeker or subtract from the 30-weeker to be able to deal with this person's individual needs, which is a really cool thing about why we've been able to roll out on the Team Builder app. And then we move into, so you pass that SFAP, SFIT, and then you move into that last 10-week period before selection, and that's when that load starts really ramping up. So we're doing multiple different pack marches, we're running multiple times, we've load, unloaded. The strength sessions are still trying to maintain the same because we just don't want to lose that strength that we've worked so hard for the last 20 weeks. And then we're also chucking in there like recovery stuff. But then on top of all those kind of things, we're still thinking the mental resilience package is there as well, the on Adele. You're able to access that if you're in the Defence Force. And so members should be plugging along that throughout the entire time as well.
Yeah, nice. And I suppose, so strength prevention, strength is the major determinant that you're talking about trying to build to prevent injury and I suppose, injury aside, to be successful in the program. Correction on selection. Some of the guys I reached out to about the 30-week program, they went through it last year, and they talked about it's absolutely awesome for prep for strength, prevention of injury, prehab, pack marching, and heavy stores carry. However, some of the candidates that weren't the best natural runners and were trying to improve their running time at 3.2 felt like the emphasis definitely shifted to strength, which sounds deliberate. I suppose if you need a little bit more because you're not naturally gifted in the running space, like how do people go about getting that the 3.2 time down, which seems to be a real sticky point, or improving the broader running as well, Kampo?
I suppose the best part about the program is that it allows you to enter your data and that data from an initial testing perspective. So week 1, day 1, you conduct a test. That test you enter the data for, and the program then individualises the training to suit your needs. And if you're then shown to be needing extra work in a 3.2, for example, or whatever component, the program basically adjusts to suit those needs.
All right, so we're trying to get access. We're at a good level for BFA results. We're absolutely crushing it. Now, where do we find the 30-week program, Kampo?
Once you've entered your expression of interest to Selection Wing, they will give your name and email address to us, and we'll give you a easy join code for Team Builder, which is that iPhone application that is the real-time feedback loop to us, basically, and it has the daily training program or 30-week program on it on a day-to-day basis within the that month-looking view. If you want the program in full, you can, and you've got access to the DPE on the ADF-SSO SharePoint page. You can click within the physical preparation tab. You can click in that and have access to the full 30-week training program. And that applies to people that, don't plan on conducting selection this year. They can still see the 30-week training program for this year's selection in full.
Back to Ben again. What if selection is less than 30 weeks away? If we don't have that sort of time, in an ideal world, we've got, unlimited time, but we're sort of pushing the time limit now for SFET and SFAP. What if we don't have 30 weeks?
So we actually get this question a lot, and we have a lot of people, will randomly reach out to us throughout the year because of their schedule. Hey, they can only fit it in during this time, and hey, I've only got this, and I've had a brand new baby, and there's just multiple life factors that affect someone coming in. Kampo will agree to it. The optimum time is 30 weeks out, so we're doing that 30-week process to try and give you the best lead-up training possible. If you don't have that, say you have 24, you have 20, you have 18, based on life circumstances. The biggest thing I would do is reach out. And, you'll probably get a long-winded conversation with Kampo, which is awesome. And then you'll probably get some really, really good information out there, which will then help guide you along that journey of selection. We'll be able to point you in the direction of the psychological pillar, the physical pillar being us. We have links into all the other PTIs within the other units where we can say, hey, this individual is coming up. Maybe give them some guidance along this. But the first thing you need to do is probably come to a PTI or us with a 3.2 and a pack marching distance and whatever other, the push-ups, heaves that you've done. So we have some kind of stats to go off, because it might not be your time. You might be, 18 weeks out and you've come forward with results that, you probably need another year, and that's fine. And then it's, hey, maybe we just adjust that goal, and then we push you down that next route. Hey, next year's your year. Let's look at your year, and we'll help you plan that. And we're more than happy doing that.
I think it's reassuring to know that, I suppose if you got your heart set on a certain date and you're going and going and going, you guys would, I suppose, come back and say, maybe it's not it. Do you know what I mean? It's that reassurance with take some time, really develop and go in strong as. We talked about niggling injuries. Sort of take some time. I think that's reassuring to hear it from the horse's mouth in the PTIs that you have been through a number of selections.
I think to reiterate what Ben just said then is that you're going to definitely have guys reach out. You're going to have guys who do 22-minute 3.2s, and then sort of say, hey, am I ready? Which is exactly what the Special Forces entry test is designed to do. It's designed to stop people from hurting themselves on a selection course, and test whether they're ready to enter. But even before that, to start the 30-week training program, to condense the 30-week training program to be shorter, you have to have had that training age and strength and conditioning base to do that, to short step it. So we've done it here, and Ben's done a great job with the engineers last year, is to short step that process, and been highly successful with those candidates to get through the engineer selection very well. But that's through one-on-ones with a cohort in every day. So some people can't do that. Some people haven't got the time for that, and some people aren't ready for that. So I suppose that answers the question in terms of a shorter ramp for selection, 30 weeks.
And that gets me to the next point. So now we've gone through the phase of we've come into the 30-week program, absolutely peak fitness, right? We've built all the way through, particularly on the strength side and for the injury prevention component, and then we're looking at SFET. It's obviously an ongoing recruitment process now for that component, but what's the ideal time to start to attempt the Special Forces assessment program?
You can do SFET whenever you like, but it's the ideal time is whenever you're ready. And so this year it started in September, and it'll lead all the way through to March. There'll be SFETs within that SFAP process. There's SFETs, once a month till the end of the year, and then very, very, it ramps up quite a bit, and they're almost once a week next year until the end of March. So whenever you're ready, and that sort of leads to that first week of the training program is, hey, do the test, understand where your start point is, understand where SFET is, and train the gap. And that's our mantra really, is to say, what's first principles of any training system is to understand where you start, understand where you need to be, and train that gap.
Reverse it back. And Ben, sorry.
I think another one as well is, and we encounter this all the time, is like what Kampo just said, when you're ready. If you have mates going with a group of guys that you're training with 6 guys, you're all varying different profiles of, strength, aerobic work, endurance, pack marching ability. It's individualized to when you're ready. So common mistakes that people will make is, all the boys are going for it, therefore I have to go for it because, otherwise, they might not want to train with me again. People need to kind of deep dive in themselves and work out, their strengths and weaknesses within themselves, so they know themselves so well that when they put themselves through this process that they go, okay, I'm not ready. I need to take a step back. Maybe I need to have a conversation with, the guys down at where Kampo and I currently are and say, hey, what am I at? I'm running this, I'm pack marching this, my push-ups and heaves are this. Do you think I'm ready? Or reaching out to people that they know currently in the command. Hey, do you think this is at a standard to get me through? But Kampo nailed it on the head. It's when you're ready.
And then I suppose, Ben, back to you. You tailor it, sort of modify it to suit you and where your strengths and weaknesses lie. But if you've got we talked about not having enough time at the start, but let's go the opposite way. And you've done the maths and you're planning out because you're diligent that you're not going to sort of attempt SFET for 12, 24, 36 months. What programs or what resources are available for people to genuinely take a long, slow burn to really build to that point of like being strong and fit prior to attempting the SFET and selection more broadly?
So just due to the, for those military members, obviously the battle rhythm throughout the year, it's going to ebbs and flows. You've got multiple stuff on during that year that's going to affect your training. You're not going to have the most ideal training run. Unfortunately, that's just how it is as part of the job. But what we've done is with that 10-week first phase in phase 1 is that ability to plug and play with that. So you could be on that first phase for the entire year. If you're prepping and you've got a 2-year goal and you're going to go, you can just do that back to back because it's a 10-week program. So you just break in your year up into 3 different training blocks, particularly if you have training exercises throughout that are going to interfere with that. You're just maintaining that because that's just going to get you fit, that's going to get you strong, and it's going to hopefully keep you injury-free so you can do very, very good in your job, and also going to be able to reach out to us and other PTIs in the local areas to be like, hey, this is what I'm thinking about. My numbers are sitting around here. What do you think? Do you think maybe it's time to go? And reaching out for professional opinions. A lot of time, guys will train in isolation when we should be training together. So the program is built ideally so you can be at the gym and everyone knows, hey, it's Monday. You'll see the guys in those barracks around Australia. You'll see them all training doing the same thing. It's an individual program that can be done in a collective environment. So it's also, you're down the track, everyone running, you see that guy. You start making friends with that guy from another unit. It's also going to bridge those relationships, and you need those relationships on selection. That is something that, mateship, it's one of the Australian things that we all get around each other. And, finding people with the same common goal and common purpose is really good. And we're hoping that people do that with the training program. Obviously, we try and foster it as much as we can here with the cohorts that we train. We all train together and do everything together. So when we go into those really, really rough, I guess, mental resilience episodes on selection, we look for those people that, hey, might be doing a little bit better than us.
And I suppose somewhat of a double-edged sword as well, training together to compete, but also, I suppose let's right back to Kampo, seeing a number of different selections. People train with individuals that they know they're fitter than, for example, and then eventually, they might potentially drop off. Those people that they knew were fitter than they are. I mean, we're going into the mental space, obviously, but that can obviously grind at people if they're not individually prepared, I suppose. Have you seen that? And sort of, why do you think that occurs, or what barriers, or sort of what approach can you take to block that out?
I think, particularly in the direct entry scheme, we see that a lot, where you've got guys that within that group that people look up to, and they look up to them as a leader, and they look up to them as someone that they've seen as either fitter, stronger, or some attribute is there in them that they resonate with, and then when they're on selection, that disappears. For whatever reason, that person that they've looked up to has either been injured or fallen off the selection in some way, and they've withdrawn, or something's gone wrong and they've been removed. And that has a mental effect on that person. And what we try to do with the DRS is to as Ben mentioned, that group training is that there's going to be more than one leader, and at any stage you are going to be required to be that leader. Also, within the selection course, it's a widely known fact that after a certain amount of days, let's say, the needle moves from the physicality to the mental very, very hard. And that's where, we do see the younger, less mature candidate withdraw at own request. You've got a niggling injury, for example, and that in the back of your mind or back of the candidate's mind, he's going to say, is that niggling injury, is that going to be permanent? Or is that going to be, debilitating later on? Or will this allow me to help my mates, because within the teams on the selection course, they're tight. And am I going to be a burden? These things, for the stronger candidates, they've got the mental capacity to overcome them. And for those that haven't, experienced much mental diversity, can't overcome those. And that's the battle it is, or the mental battle that is the candidate's head every day of the 21 days. What doesn't change on a selection course is the demographics that are within the course that you see. As a PTI, you can sit back and look, and you can see those that are physically prepared, they've done the training, they're confident, they move deliberately, and they're not too anxious, I suppose. There's a group that's in between, and they kind of fluctuate up and down, and then there's a group that are the bottom group. Deer in the headlights, anxious all the time, eyes wide open, unsure of where to be, unsure of how fast to be there. But that's the group that we were talking about that haven't done the work, and they are on the cusp of either failing. They've just gotten through the entry test, and then they've found themselves on this selection course that is with hundreds of other people that have prepared. And they are the first to either withdraw or be removed through that lack of preparedness.
And I suppose if we talk about, so 3 groups, and traditionally 3 groups over the years, sort of widen the applicant pool, talking about tri service, and I mean, you've always been able to apply from tri service, but more and more so. But now female applicants, like going through the selection process, what else do you find with females specifically in terms of selection?
Nothing changes. They will fit within those 3 groups throughout different activities, whether they're in the average. So what I would say is that in terms of the average strength, every person, regardless of gender, needs to be above the average strength. And that's what we talked about in terms of strength being a predictor of success and a predictor of, gives you a likelihood. Nothing predicts injury, but it gives you a likelihood of being injured throughout the course. Those that aren't at the average strength and they are below the average strength for that particular course will fall into that bottom group as we just spoke about.
And Ben, sorry?
Yeah, I think now we've kind of gone away from the male, female, the services, the cores and whatnot, and we're just looking at the individual itself. And that's why we're tailoring all this training that we're trying to build. It's to the individual. We're catering to that person and their needs. And when they go through that process, if they have that high, as Kampo just said, the strength, when we do those activities on selection, if we have that super strong guy, and he only takes 20% of effort to move that load of weight or whatever activity it is, whether it's a march or we're moving stores, whether or not that person who's weaker, who's just spent 80% of their recovery, and then it comes into that recovery piece and recovering during selection. So I think for individuals applying through the multiple different streams, we've got the SIGs, medics, different corps, different services, engineers. It's not necessarily your job. I think what we're looking at now, it's where you've come from, the experiences that you've had, and then we're trying to build and turn you into a physically robust soldier to be able to pass those tasks, to make you as strong as possible and as fit as possible. So when we do those activities, you're not sitting there in the black, I call it, where you're not cognitively aware and you're not actually going to be able to learn the next activity or, help and assist the team in the next, movement or stores or whatever we're doing on selection.
Yeah, I think I'd say to anyone who, regardless of race, gender, core, who you are, so long as you are, you perceive yourself to be ready, and you, of course, throughout the objective tests of SFET, you are ready, you're more than likely going to be in that top third.
And I suppose that links with my next point, which is you've been directly quoted, Kampo, saying a selection is a game of recovery. Could you talk about your approach or why you argue that, I suppose, in that sense, being on a game of recovery?
I think it talks about the preparedness of a candidate. So, like, the more physically robust you are, the more prep you've done in terms of, as mentioned before, the mental prep guide. So, the more training you've done, both physically and mentally, the fuller your cup is going to be. And so, when you're on a selection course and you're having to use less energy to do the same amount of work as somebody else, your cup's going to be, once that session's over, your cup is less empty, I suppose, in terms of how much you've got left to give, and then how much you've got left, or how much you've got to recover, the time it takes you to recover. So immediately after most physical attributes or most physical events, you're going to be required to learn something. That is the game of selection, so that you do something hard, you'll learn something, you'll do something hard, and then you'll have to regurgitate what you've learnt to show some sort of trainability, some sort of attribute to the instructors, what that is and how that is. It's something that you haven't or you can't have known beforehand, and then under fatigue, you're going to deliver it back. If you're less fatigued than somebody else, and if you've more recovered than somebody else because of your preparation beforehand, and that's physical and mental, you're going to be able to take more on and be trainable and regurgitate that back and show that you are trainable, which talks to the recovery game.
Yeah, I suppose increasing your capacity the entire way through to get to a point where you've got the capacity to concentrate on things more broadly than just that moment and exactly what you're concentrating on at the time. With the so I suppose we talked about, and we're getting into selection now, but I suppose what is the most common cause of why people get injured on selection? I'm not talking about the mental stage. We'll go through that in a second, but physically injured, and you talked about strength being a major component to prevention, but what should prep look like to stop this?
Well, I think it's knowing your body. It's knowing your body throughout your training program, and that 30 weeks is a long time, as you mentioned before. But not just blindly following the training program. Understanding that a niggle is a niggle, a pain is pain, and a niggle is a precursor to an injury. So that if I have a niggle in my ankle and I think, well, hang on, today's pack marching day, I have to pack march. You need the agility to, or the flexibility within your own sort of mind and being able to adjust the training program to suit. Do something else. Do something that doesn't hurt. Do something that's going to allow you to still either train or potentially reach out. Go to your physio. Go to your RAP. Get some opinions from a PTI and ask, hey, I've got this injury, what can I do? Or physio, hey, what can we do in terms of intervention here to assist me to keep going on the program? And absolute worst case, it may be that this year's not your year. This injury, you've got an injury now, and it's time to recover from the outset.
And I suppose it talks back to that. Now you have more time to prepare, I suppose, going through more development. Ben, you've got some points on that component?
I think people also need to understand that it's gone away from the individual game. So it's now a team. So your journey through selection as an individual is putting pressure on your relationship, your home life. We've got so many awesome facilities at our advantage now. So we've got, the psychs down in the units. So not only are we sitting back and just kind of focusing on the physical pillar, we're reaching out to them. We're working with the local area physios or a physio to injury manage and prevent stuff from happening that's going to take you off selection or go into selection injured, because you never want to do that. That's one of the, the red light, hey, don't do that, because that's just going to exacerbate that and turn that into potentially something damaging that is going to pull you off selection. So I think people need to kind of shift the dial a little bit and look at it and go, cool, how can I get as many people on my team as possible to help me get you through this journey? Because once you get through that journey and you finish, and that reward of finishing, you're then looking back going, hey, there was 10, 15 people that helped me get me here. You want people to invest in you so that your journey through selection is as best and as physically, mentally, spiritually as possible, so that when you get to the end state, it's the best feeling ever. It's more of like, where they say the village raises a kid. That's kind of what we're looking for here, is everyone's putting in all their, eggs into your basket, investing into you, and then we're hoping you get through that 21 days. Because then at the end of that, you look back and you go, that was awesome. And then you preach that to the other people, and then the next generation start doing that as well. And then we all start working together to build that soldier or that person, individual that we want in SOCOMD.
And I suppose, like, if you do reach out to build that team initially and you find some awesome professionals, or you don't find some awesome professionals, test and adjust, move to different, and again, I'm giving advice having never done it, but they're like, move to a different professional and find that team, I suppose. Don't just sort of cross it out at the first roadblock in trying to find the right people. I suppose more tangible stuff, sort of what... if you had 5 tips, it doesn't need to be 5, but between both of you, what are your 5 tips for people to consider when they're training for selection?
I think first and foremost, reach out to someone that in an area that you're struggling with. So if it's strength and conditioning, you should be reaching out to your local area PTI. They are going to point you in the right direction.
Number 2 would definitely be to shave down before your SFAP. No, I'm kidding. So what we'd be looking at doing is nailing all 3. So focusing on the low-hanging fruit, so sleep, food, nutrition, hydration. There's things that everyone can get. They're easy done. Nailing them, and your performance will definitely reap the benefit of that.
Monitor your progress. Like I said before, understand where you are now, understand where you need to be, train the gap, but monitor that jump from where you are and to where you need to be.
I think setting realistic goals as well, and then definitely spending time on the kit that you're going to invest in that's going to help you through that selection. So making sure, you have a pack that fits you, you have the equipment that fits you, because your equipment is going to serve your purpose during that 21 days and prior to that, the SFAP.
Number 5 is don't chase training. So if you miss training, and it leads back to understand your body, understand what's happening, understand what niggles are, don't chase it. Rest is good, and come back to the training when you're ready to train.
It's no more the rest is rust.
Rest is rust.
Rest is rust. It's not a thing anymore. We can debug that now.
Getting rid of the tattoo.
And I think that's an interesting component. Interesting segue is like so we're either ready or we're not ready. Either way, how do people reach out to get? You've got a lot of information on your the ADF School of Special Operations SharePoint page. You talked, Ben, about the app and being able to reach out in that way to get feedback back and to iterate sort of the training program. How do people get more information?
Well, you can actually go on YouTube, and Kampo will give you that on the YouTube video that he's in. Or you can do alternatively.
Everyone's looking it up now.
Everyone's looking it up just to get quotes from him.
Yeah.
Alternatively, you can reach out through the ADF SSO inbox.
SharePoint page.
SharePoint page is a big one as well. And you can talk to us. And, more often than not, we'll just end up calling you, because it's easier to have a conversation like what we're doing now to, share stories, facts, get all the information to be able to help that individual or person on their journey through the SOCOMD process.
The the PTI inbox there's on the SharePoint page as well. So that's looked at daily. So we'll get back to, as Ben said, we'll get back to you either by email, more than likely by phone call if it requires it, and speak to you for one-on-one.
And I suppose for those that are yet to get the opportunity to get onto the Defence Protected Network and get to a SharePoint page, how is it best? You direct entry, or you're planning to go Special Forces eventually. How do they get more information as a civilian?
It's ADF careers is the place to be, but that's a long road, and even for if you plan to do the direct entry scheme, direct recruitment scheme, that's still a long road, and you shouldn't be reaching out to us per se. It's not to say that you can't, but it should be through all of the information that's available to everyone on the ADF careers website.
Thank you very much, lads. This has been absolutely awesome. We've riffed on how to physically prepare, strength and prevention of injury, and how to succeed on selection from 2 individuals that have been through more than anyone else and seen thousands of candidates. Thank you so much for your time today.
Pleasure.
Thanks for listening to the Cove Podcast. Explore our channel for more great audio PME content. Also, visit us at cove.army.gov.au for hundreds of additional resources. The Cove, the learning home of the Australian profession of arms.